Welcome to the third edition of India Diversity Conclave. My name is Ramya Rao, and it's my pleasure to be the host for this particular event today, where we will be exploring the importance of diversity and inclusion at workplace and beyond. And with that, I now invite on stage the head of Management Committee, India Diversity Forum, Mr. Rishi Kapoor, to come ahead and share his thoughts and welcome the audience as well.
I'm thrilled to welcome you all to this special event on diversity and inclusion in the business world. We live in an ever-changing society where equity and diversity are at the forefront of our minds. Promoting a diverse and inclusive environment in the workplace is imperative to India Diversity Forum's success in today's business landscape. As I formally open the third edition of India Diversity Conclave, I welcome esteemed fraternity members who are joining us physically and virtually. The conclave will mark a significant opportunity for us to come together as a community and celebrate the diverse perspective, talents, and experiences that each of us brings to the table.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for one of the most awaited moments. The IDF CEO Pledge for Diversity and Inclusion is a commitment by the CEOs to prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion within their organizations. Now, we are launching this pledge for the very first time today, ladies and gentlemen, and we have with us leading CEOs from some of India's largest companies who are committed to advancing diversity and inclusion in their workplace. So starting with, could we have a huge round of applause as I invite on stage the Managing Director of Owens Corning India, ladies and gentlemen, Dhananjay Tapaswi.
In Owens Corning, we believe that the focus on D&I and equity really is to make sure that all of us, not just others, but all of us, can bring our entire selves to work. And I think that's the whole premise, is if we feel comfortable in the environment, if we feel part of the general fabric, then we bring our entire selves to work, and there's nothing more powerful than that. Thanks for having me on as well. Thank you.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to invite onto the stage the CEO of Marsh McLennan Global Services India. Could we have a huge round of applause for Mr. Dinesh Dio?
An average American CEO of a Fortune 100 company is a 6 feet tall, white man. It is a startling, when you look at those facts and when you analyze what's really happening, and when you realize that becoming a successful CEO is actually nothing to do with being tall, white, or man, you do realize that there is a bias. And bias influences decisions of leaders that go against not only just diversity and inclusion, but many other aspects. Then at workplace, to increase awareness of these things can happen, can be the best commitment that I think a CEO can give. Thank you.
So with that, let me go ahead and invite, ladies and gentlemen, the Managing Director for Hershey India. Could we have a huge round of applause for Geetika Mehta?
Hershey is one of the few companies globally in the Fortune 500 which has a woman CEO. So somewhere, diversity as gender is really steeped in the way the organization functions. And I think that's the starting point. If I were to bring it closer home, so of course I lead the business in Hershey India, and my leadership team is 43% women. But that is not diversity alone. So it's not gender. Sometimes I think we limit ourselves to calling diversity as gender. With that, thank you.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, let's move forward and invite on stage the CEO of Amirai Asset and Financial Services. Could we have a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Krishna Kanaya.
There is one saying, or you can say NLP belief, that each person is unique. And I am confident that if we believe in that and start practicing that concept, then achieving diversity and inclusion, to my mind, becomes very easy. It becomes natural. We don't need to make any extra effort. Thank you so much.
Joining us on stage, we have the Managing Director of Anand Rathi Insurance Brokers Private Limited. Could we have a huge round of applause as I invite Ms. Supriya Rathi onto the stage?
Right now, as a central philosophy of Anand Rathi as a group and our company in particular. The central ethos is mutual respect for each and every person. And that then gets translated into everybody deserving equal opportunity. And then when that gets embedded into the ethos, all of this actually flows. Thank you very much.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I now invite on stage the Managing Director and CEO for Welspun Corporation Limited. Could we have a huge round of applause as I invite Mr. Vipul Mathur.
The amount of benefits which they bring on the table when you have a diverse, inclusive culture and the team members coming up on the table, we are first-hand seeing the amount of innovativeness, the creativity, and the purpose which they bring on the table. I think so one of the reasons for our global success has been the workforce what we have, the workforce which is very inclusive, diverse, and coming from various backgrounds. And I stay committed to the pledge what we are about to take. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, I now request all our CEOs to go ahead and sign the pledge. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone who's joined us here, who are passionate to actually pursue this cause of D&I. IDF Diversity and Inclusion Survey 2023 is an important tool for organizations to assess the level of diversity and inclusivity within their workspace. Now, it provides valuable insights into employees' experiences, perceptions, and attitudes towards diversity and inclusion, as well as identify areas where improvements are needed. So let's go ahead and begin this moment of unveiling the D&I survey. Where we are going to discuss the survey, but through a panel discussion on the topic, industry experts' discussion on analyzing the DEI survey findings 2023.
In your view, Ajanta, my first question, what should companies do to actualize a comprehensive D&I strategy?
Okay, so I think, if we start with asking ourselves a few questions, starting with who is setting the D&I strategy? Right? And here I want to focus on the D&I maturity model. Are we in the transition point where it is shifting from HR and D&I lead to the business leaders? Are the business leaders involved in setting the D&I strategy? So once we ask that question to ourselves, then I think the next question that we should ask ourselves that along with the D&I strategy, are we also setting the cultural strategy? And the cultural strategy would mean that are we role modeling in inclusion? Do we have the senior leaders represent diversely, cognitively as well as demographically?
Who sets the bar?
Yeah.
Next question to you, Rajni. What are the 3 steps you suggest to reduce the implementation gap once a strategy is in place?
The first point for us is a DEI strategy cannot be delinked from business. It has to be an integral part of the business strategy. And therefore, how are we embedding it in the business strategy is the fundamental piece. Step number 2 is how are we kind of engaging the stakeholders? Stakeholders, not necessarily the leaders, and it should not necessarily be seen as a top-down strategy or an approach which is mandated. How do you get the involvement of the entire organization? How do you drive conversations that ensure that it is critical for the organization, that it's a business prerogative, it's a business imperative? Third, last but not the least, metrics. Anything that does not get measured does not get done.
Now we come to the next big segment that we identified, which is talent retention. How do you attract and nurture diverse talent to retain them and give space to develop a meaningful career path?
So we have 4 pillars we have 4 thrust areas for diversity. It's gender, generation, people with disabilities, and now cultural integration that has just been added. We went and spoke to people of these groups and said that what are the challenges you face in inclusion? And around those challenges, we made case studies and we used theatre methodology. Half-day sessions based on theatre methodology where we gave half of the case study, told the group to enact it without speaking and complete the story. And then we would discuss that concept of what is gender, what is generation, and things like that. So I think that was a very powerful way of making people sensitive.
How do you get cooperation and allyship from the so-called mainstream employees?
What we do in Ingram Micro is, or rather I believe, all the women who has made it to the boardroom or who has made it to any field, they have all gone through all the challenges. 25 years ago, 20 years ago, we did not even talk about D&I. They had managed their kids, they have managed their family, they have managed their emotion, everything, right? Challenges were same, nothing different. So my point here is D&I means, be it a woman or a man, the diversity of the thoughts, the education, the personalities, the way they dress themselves, anything and everything is a diversity.
Pallavi, you belong to the business and engineering domain, but play a role as global co-lead for the Women's Resource Group. What has been your experience about challenges for retaining talented women?
So I think, first of all, I think it's been brought up a couple of times that it's very easy to hire. And we hire a lot of women at entry levels, at lower levels. The problem starts that as we progressively move up the ladder, we see the numbers dwindle. It's not that women don't want to be there. What we need to understand is why they don't end up there. And the root problem lies in the fact that our perception is that when it's a leadership role or when it's a supervisory role, the demands of the job are such that it requires a 24/7 commitment. It requires full-time attention. And that's where most women voluntarily take a step back and say that maybe this is not where I want to be. The organizations as well as home, from an organization perspective, the workplace should have a culture, like you said, where women don't feel that I have to work 10 or 12 hours just to prove myself that I'm just as good or just as competent as the other person who's sitting there and working for 10 or 12 hours. The second piece of it is also having safe environments within organizations like the Women's Resource Group where they can sit together and discuss all of this, right? So I might want to talk to one of my peers who's going through a similar problem. I might want to talk to a mentor who I might look for direction that I'm facing this particular challenge in my professional career and how do I go about solving it. So those kind of environments being made available to women is very, very important.
Before we wrap up, let's have a huge round of applause and thanks to our panel.
It's all time to look forward to a very powerful panel discussion. Mr. Gautam, I'll hand it over to you to please take it forward.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to start the first question with Sapna. There are certain traits where women have performed better than men, and these traits include social skills, emotional intelligence, things like pro-moral orientation and all that, right, where they perform better than men. But then there are also another study which says there are two showstoppers for women. One showstopper is about confidence, and the other showstopper is about risk-taking, right? So they're saying that these are two areas which lead to certain blockages that women face in their growth. Can you share with us some of your perspectives and experiences in both these areas?
It's really about, and I think as she shared with me, something called the muscle memory. So it's not only this generation. I think how women have, why we are all here is what our grandmothers, our parents have kind of ingrained in you. So as a child, you're naturally, doing stuff for the family. You're the one who's adjusting. The girl adjusts, takes care of the family. If the keys have to be given, it's got to be given to the girl, not to the guy. The girl cooks, the guy doesn't. So it's like ingrained in you. Or the tougher decisions are being taken by the boy. Because the protector, take care of the girl, So it's like not just, so you're really here after a lot of generations of, in our heads. So, and that's how this really comes about.
Neetu, the next question is for you. Basically, there was this lady called Ursula Burns, and she was a celebrated businesswoman, and she is the ex-CEO of Xerox US. And she was also a big advocate for gender and women in leadership roles in the US. And she spoke something about luck. And luck has many definitions, such as much as diversity has. And I'm just going to quote her. And she said, "You have to work on your luck to ensure eventually luck comes to you." And that's what she told women leaders. What do you think about this statement? Do you think this statement matters? Is there some truth behind this statement? And any experience that you can share with us on this?
So a woman has to make her luck to reach where she wants to. When I say that, it means that she has to do hard work, perseverance, and also I think we don't want, so what is inclusion? Okay, we don't want, that because you're a woman you have to be chosen. No. So what are we saying? So I would say that when we have to make our luck, it means that I have to prove myself better than my counterpart. And counterpart can be male or female, but if I have to get to the leadership position, what I'm looking at is I have to be at par or better. So that is what I would say that making my luck means.
So Shavi, I'm going to come to you now, and this question is something to do with, today if you look at the priorities of CHROs in 2023, right, amongst the top 2 focus areas for CHROs is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Right, but unfortunately, if you look at the board level or if you look at the NRC, right, which is the remuneration committee, there doesn't seem to be any focus there on DEI, right? So how do you think that a CHRO should actually drive that agenda so that for the DEI person, it becomes an easier proposition?
If you look at the statistics in India, 100 people, for all 100 people born, 48 of these will be women. Okay, only 18% of the women population actually contribute to GDP. So we are starting small, right? And then when you're going to go up and you're saying we want women leaders, right? So great. So then we have this funnel which goes. So 30% of the entry-level workforce or 20% can be women. It goes up and then it stays around 10%. Then the last 2 years, what happened? 3 years, what happened? We had COVID. Right? And then we've had this layoff spate. So 2 data points for everyone here and for anyone in HR to think through and go back and check what your data shows. 9% of women actually dropped off. So the women representation dropped by 9% in India. I'm not giving global numbers. Okay. Second, for the layoffs that have happened, especially tech space, Vesi women were less, right? And then what has happened is 45% of the layoffs is women. In a 30% representation at the lower level, 45% of what you're losing is women. Do you really think you have enough now? The other business case is very strong, not to have women, not to have other diversities represented. Why? There are only 4% CEOs in India who are women. The board is represented only by 3%. So most of the average, on an average board is 3%. And then in that, you want to work with, you don't want that diversity because it's just difficult now. Right, so then that happens. So when you have to break it in as a CHRO, if you were ever wondering, is it a good topic to have, bring it back to the company and see the value. And if you can't derive value, you're not looking hard enough. Right, and we are not able to go and show, right, because we are still treating it personally as I must do this for women. I need to do it for the company. Right, and I think that's where each of us, and we need to customize our language for what is required. In the tech space, women will bring creativity. They will add the kind of colors, if you are UX, so for example, the kinds you wouldn't see. They will add open differential thought. They will be collaborative. It is a natural instinct for a nurturer to be the listening ear.
Do you think that, financial awareness, financial planning continues to be an issue amongst working women in corporate India?
Equality essentially can only be powered by economic equality, which is your money equality, which is your financial equality. Less than 2% working women are actually thinking about their retirement. What this typically does is, as women, we retire with 1/10 the corpus that a man does because we've not already started working towards it. We're very busy earning. If we're earning, we're saving it. But we're not looking at saying that how do I create my own financial security by growing this, meeting my goals, looking at retirement. That's where we hand over the money to
father, brother, husband, sometimes even a colleague at workplace. I don't know how many women here have money discussions at work where you ask your colleague, where are you investing? I'm investing here. Typically, we sort of say, oh, this person talks a lot about money. He's the best suited. So, hey, where are you investing? Just put my money also. So I think that is something that needs to change. Luckily, I think with the Gen Z, that is changing very rapidly.
Okay, I think we've come to the end of the session.
The employee life cycle, in the entire life cycle of the employee, right from the recruitment or the sourcing up to the exit, we have complete equality towards all categories of candidates who are coming to us. We are not looking at the candidate from the gender, from the age, ethnicity, from their background, from their location, or from any other parameter. We are simply evaluating them basis the competence, basis the role which we have in hand. If at all we are looking at their growth, we are simply looking at their current performance and their potential to perform in the organization. We are not at all looking at any kind of biasness at any stage in the organization.
We got to create the environment in which people feel comfortable. If they can bring their entire self to work, then they'll promote others to bring their entire selves to work. And that chain continues. And I think leadership starts with that. So if leadership brings their full self to work, encourages others and makes the open environment, then that creates a self-fulfilling chain of events which allows everyone to bring their full selves to work, and that's really diversity and inclusion at work.
Being an individual, whether you're in a leadership position or not, right? And being a better, more conscious, more aware, more compassionate individual is essentially a mark of leadership, right? And of influence, whatever is your hierarchy and designation. So I think there are two kinds of leaders who lead the charge. I think any social movement, anything that needs to change needs ambassadors and leaders. And for me, it is both individuals who become leaders of that cause. So individuals who really are determined to be sponsors, champions, and amplifiers of underrepresented groups are very critical, and they can be anywhere in the organizations. But as critically, a lot of the conversation on diversity, equity, inclusion falls flat, seems inauthentic, seems lip service. If the top leadership, the top 20 people, not just the CEO, it begins with the CEO.
So in the last couple of years, we have started our complete manufacturing line, which is now managed by all-women team. So we have a manufacturing line at our Vijayanagar plant and also a Vasan plant, which is completely manned by women's team. Now, the leadership buy-in and the leadership understanding that a group of women can manage end-to-end line process is something where the leadership engagement comes into this cause. So unless and until they understand the value of it, I'm sure none of these lines would have started. So I guess for me, that is one of the signature step of JSW leadership, that they really want to take the diversity to the next level.